Hey, what is up, Algo fam? Welcome back to the channel. The SEC filing of the new Bitcoin ETF is actually tokenized on Algorand. That's right, Algorand, making Bitcoin do what Bitcoin says that it can do. Because without Algorand, Bitcoin wouldn't do what Bitcoin said that it could do. At least, not within the means of the normal person. And that's the power of Algorand, which is why Algorand will have mass adoption. It's geared more towards the normal person. And who's the normal person? Most of us. Let's read this from cryptosaurus.com, and the description will be in, or the link, forgive me, will be in the description below. SEC filing reveals new Bitcoin ETF tokenized on Algorand. Over the years, numerous Bitcoin ETF or exchange-traded funds have landed on the persnickety compliance desk of the SEC. Persnickety doesn't even begin to describe the Securities and Exchange Commission. You know, they had an open door policy, they said. They said, if you are a cryptocurrency company, then we have an open door policy. Come on in and talk to us. However, what they didn't state was that open door was actually an open door into a financial prison. Anybody that went in and discussed with the Securities and Exchange Commission then later on had the SEC come after them. So, you're not a big fan of the SEC. I mean, the appearance of impropriety, even if there isn't corruption or impropriety within the Securities and Exchange Commission, it appears that there is. In fact, dozens of prospective Bitcoin ETFs are currently waiting in the wings for the highly coveted SEC stamp of approval. Yeah, I don't know why it's so coveted. Obviously, yes, the SEC is the powers that be, but if people would open their eyes and look, the appearance of corruption within the Securities and Exchange Commission is there. It just looks bad. And if it looks bad, there's a high chance that it is bad. The most recent filing, dated April 12th, is just the latest to be added to the docket. Unlike the others, though, this Bitcoin ETF is different. So much so that the fund itself is built on another cryptocurrency. And if this one gets through and the others don't, wow, that would be crazy. This ETF, which is filed by Florida-based Digital Funds LLC, titled the Digital Funds S&P 500 Bitcoin 7525 Index ETF. Wow, that is a mouthful. It is unique in many ways. According to the prospectus, the fund will invest 75% of its asset in large U.S. companies that comprise the S&P 500 index, and will invest the other 25% in Bitcoin futures contracts. So it's mixing TradFi and crypto. Very interesting. A 75-25 split. Because this is a futures ETF, by default, it has a much higher chance of being approved by the Securities and Exchange Commission, unlike spot ETFs, which have thus far never made it out the freaking door. Interesting, and the likelihood of this one being passed being higher is mouth-watering. Bitcoin futures contracts are cash-settled contracts traded on commodity exchanges registered with the Commodity Futures Trading Commission. The value of Bitcoin futures is determined by reference to the Chicago Mercantile Exchange, the CME. Bitcoin reference rate, which is designed to provide an indication of the price of Bitcoin across certain cash Bitcoin exchanges. Well, how Algorand fits in? Well, the other interesting wrinkle, I wouldn't call it a wrinkle, I would call it an anti-wrinkle. The Botox, let's say, to Bitcoin. I like that. Algorand is the Botox to Bitcoin. The other very interesting wrinkle in this ETF filing is the fact that the shares are tokenized, recorded, and stored on Algorand. Because that's the best way to do it. Per the filing, the ownership of the fund's shares will also be recorded or digitized on the Algorand blockchain. Additionally, the shares will become available for purchase, sale, or transfer from one shareholder to another shareholder, peer-to-peer, contract to contract, on the Algorand chain. That bit is particularly interesting. Yes it is. Trading equity shares is not something that is generally ever done peer-to-peer because they want you to use the middleman. They want you to use a broker. They want you to use someone in between that can stick out their hand and breeze their hand across your flowing cash as it flows by and dip a little bit of your cash out for themselves. Peer-to-peer, contract to contract, smart contract to contract, cuts out the middleman, makes fees better, makes things faster, more secure. It just works better. How Algorand fits in. Equity shares are not liquid like crypto, not even remotely. People can buy and sell equities, but the rigidity couched in the fine print strips these shares of any semblance of ownership. There's too much fine print. There's too much, you have to do this, you have to do that. No, too much. This ETF's proposed transition to tokenization allows for flexible liquidity. What Algorand does is it allows the ETF to be traded peer-to-peer, providing a crypto-like makeup for the equity. The caveat is any potential shareholder must be whitelisted by the transfer agent prior to purchasing shares in a peer-to-peer transaction. It's not a surprise. ETFs are fully regulated and must be registered with the SEC, and everything with the SEC requires more red tape. Algorand and other cryptocurrencies as well, cryptocurrencies in general, help get rid of some of that red tape that TradFi has. As noted above, the filing states that a fund shares will be recorded on the Algorand blockchain to facilitate the fund's shares being available for purchase, sale, or transfer. So you can use the Bitcoin ETF, you can buy the Bitcoin ETF, and then Algorand is what makes it available and easy to sell, purchase, and transfer. Because Algorand has instant finality, these tokenized shares inherit crypto-native features of Algorand, including, other than know your customer in this instance, permissionless liquidity. Liquidity is cash, meaning peer-to-peer. You can sell it, you can trade it, you can transfer it without having to get some other third party's permission. As well as the removal of middlemen, the third parties whose permission you have to have, and then also the third party whose doesn't get your permission to take your cash. This ETF, more or less, eliminates burdensome counterparty risks, which sandbag investors while extracting profit from their intermediary role. Every time anybody does anything for you or anything in between, they take a cut of the profit. Anytime you make a payment, and it's not a direct payment, straight from you to the company, there are fees involved. Sometimes they are hidden fees. Sometimes you don't even know they happen because they are charged to the retailer. When you use your credit card, when you use your debit card, when you send remittance payments overseas, fees apply. There's a reason in some retail shops, when you use your card, they have that little sign, and that sign says, if you are using your card, there's a minimum purchase requirement. That's because the retailer has decided to pay the fee for the card transaction. But it isn't worth their time, their money, their effort for any transactions below that $5 mark, because they're paying Swift or they're paying whatever credit card company they're using. That's the middleman. If they were using cryptocurrency, there would be no middleman. There would be no fees. You would go in, you would take your phone, you would use your phone just like we use our phones nowadays, Apple Pay, Samsung Wallet, Samsung Pay, any of those other tap-to-pay functions. Same idea, only cutting out the middleman, cutting out the fees. Now, if you added up all those fees for retailers and all those fees that you're paying that you don't know that you're paying to the middleman, I think you would be shocked at how large those fees are. I mean, they're huge. The most obvious upgrade of tokenized shares is the ability to leverage the public immutable ledger of Algorand. The ledger provides transparency and is a bulwark to prevent fraud and ensure liability protection. It is faster, it is more secure than cash. The filing states the transfer agent may use the Algorand as a source of information in the case of a disputed transaction, including in the case of alleged fraud or theft. The filing notes that fees on Algorand are nominal. Also, they have deemed the consensus protocol of Algorand to be resistant enough to tolerate an arbitrary number of malicious users. In other words, they're using Algorand because it's fast, because it's secure, and because it gives the user, you, me, the people using it, the ability on the blockchain if something should happen, if you make a purchase and you feel like you didn't get the product that you thought, it was a fraud, it was a scam, or someone scammed you in other ways. It's public, it's immutable, and you can use the information to form a case to dispute any transaction. It's harder to do that with cash. You got to go to your bank, you got to get your bank involved, or your credit union involved, or the credit card company involved. I had one time with a overseas payment where I actually had to get much higher government agencies involved, and it took a year, over a year actually, for me to get my money, because I had to get proof from so many different sources and so many different places, and everything took time. And then there were middlemen involved, and they had to get involved because there were middlemen involved in the first place when I made the transaction. And they all took their fees along the way, and by the time I got my money, I didn't get all the money that I had sent. I only got a portion of it left. Cryptocurrency changing the world for the better. Algorand being that bridge, that sled that you set Bitcoin on and pull Bitcoin around on. It's Algorand. I thank you for your time. You guys are amazing. You guys are early. And if you've listened all the way to the end, my, you've got what it takes. You've got patience. You've got drive. I appreciate that. And I will see you guys on the next one.